I never thought much of it when Emily started going to church more often. She said it brought her peace, that it helped her clear her mind. I figured, hey, maybe it's good for her. Life's stressful. If prayer helps, then fine. At first, I even felt a little guilty. I hadn't been the best husband lately, work had been hell, and I knew I wasn't as present as I used to be. Maybe she was just looking for something bigger than both of us, something to give her clarity. Then I ran into Mike. Mike and I go way back. Poker nights, backyard barbecues, the kind of guy who never sugarcoats things. We hadn't seen each other in months, so when I ran into him at Joe's diner, we caught up like no time had passed. But midway through our conversation, he gave me this weird look. Hey, man, how are things with Emily? I shrugged. She's good. Spending a lot of time at church these days. Mike's jaw tightened, and he shifted in his seat like he was deciding whether to say something. I don't want to stir up trouble, but I saw her at St. Augustine's last week. And she wasn't exactly at the service. A cold sensation crawled up my spine. I put my coffee down. What do you mean? I asked, keeping my voice steady. Mike sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. She was with Father Daniel. And, man. I swear to you, they were flirting. Hard. I let out a dry laugh. Come on, Mike. He's a priest. Mike just looked at me. Doesn't mean he's not a man. I shook my head, but something about the way he said it stuck with me. That night, I couldn't get his words out of my head. Emily had been acting different lately. Not in an obvious way, but in those small, almost imperceptible shifts. She'd always been affectionate, but now it was like she was on some sort of emotional high whenever she got back from church. At first, I thought maybe it was just the effect of prayer. Some people find real peace in it. But then, I really started paying attention. A week later, the pieces started coming together. Emily would get home late from her prayer nights, and she always looked different. Her face was flushed. Her hair was slightly messy, like she'd been touched. She would sigh in this way I hadn't heard in years. And one night, as she walked in, I caught something that made my stomach twist. She was humming. Emily never hums. Not when she's cooking. Not when she's cleaning. Not when she's happy. It was such a small thing, but at that moment, it felt like a smoking gun. And then there was her phone. Normally, she was careless with it. She'd leave it face up on the counter, unlocked half the time. But now it was always with her. Always face down. And she had a new habit. Whenever she got a text, she would glance at the screen and smile before quickly locking it again. That night, I waited until Emily was deep asleep. Her breathing was slow, steady, the kind of sleep that only comes when someone has no guilt weighing them down. I, on the other hand, felt like I was on fire. My hands were clenched so tightly my knuckles were white. My heart pounded in my chest, and every fiber of my being screamed at me to wake her up, to shake the truth out of her. But I didn't. Instead, I did something I never thought I'd have to do in my own marriage. I reached for her phone. She never changed her password, why would she? I was the trusting, clueless husband. I swiped it open, my thumb hovering over her messages. And then I saw his name. Father Daniel. My stomach turned, but I forced myself to tap the conversation. And that's when my world collapsed. Father Daniel, can't wait to see you again tonight. You're my forbidden fruit, and I want another taste. Emily, I'll be there, baby. Let's pray together, and then I'll be on my knees for you in a different way. I gripped the phone so hard I thought it might snap. My breath came fast and uneven. But it got worse. I scrolled up, my heart hammering with every message. And there it was, months' worth of texts. They'd been sneaking around behind my back for a long time. Sometimes meeting after Sunday service, sometimes late at night when I thought she was at prayer meetings. Every single time, in the church. But then I saw the messages that truly broke me. Emily, I can't even fake it with James anymore. It's like sleeping with a child. No passion, no fire, and don't get me started on his size. It's pathetic. Father Daniel, poor thing. Stuck with a husband who can't satisfy you. Maybe it's God's way of telling you that you deserve more. Emily, well, if that's the case, then you must be heaven sent, because I finally know what real intimacy feels like. My vision blurred. My breath came in sharp gasps. Not only had she betrayed me, she had humiliated me. And she had done it with a priest. A man who was supposed to represent holiness. I clenched my jaw so hard it ached. I could hear my own pulse thundering in my ears. I kept scrolling, each message another knife in my gut. Emily, you make me feel things James never could. I have to pretend with him. Act like I'm enjoying it. But with you? God, I never have to fake it. Father Daniel, that's because I worship you the way you deserve. Unlike him, I know what a real woman needs. My entire body trembled. I could barely see through the red haze clouding my vision. This wasn't just betrayal. This was mockery. I turned my head, staring at her as she slept peacefully beside me. The woman I had loved. The woman I had trusted. And all this time, she had been sneaking off to be with a man who laughed at me behind my back. I wanted to wake her up. To throw the phone in her face and make her explain herself. But then something inside me shifted. A cold, calculating part of my mind pushed through the rage. Emily thought she was untouchable. That she could do this, lie to my face, humiliate me, and still walk around as if she were some devoted, holy wife. No. Not this time. If she could play dirty, so could I. When I finally calmed down enough to think clearly, I knew I needed proof. Hard evidence. The kind no one, not Emily, not Father Daniel, not even God himself, could deny. So, I made a call. Kevin. Kevin and I had been friends since college. He was a reporter now, the kind who thrived on scandal. His job was to expose corruption, to rip the masks off liars and hypocrites. And this? This was his jackpot. Let me get this straight, he said, his voice crackling over the phone. Your wife is cheating on you, with a priest. And they do it in the church. That's exactly what I'm saying. I heard him exhale, then a low chuckle. James, my man, you just handed me the story of the year. I want them caught in the act, I said, my voice cold. Can you do that? A pause. Then. Oh, I will. And it's going to be biblical. We set the plan in motion. The next night, Emily grabbed her purse and kissed me on the cheek, like nothing was wrong. I'll be back late, she said. We're doing an extended prayer session tonight. I forced a smile. Of course. Take your time. As soon as the door shut behind her, I grabbed my jacket and walked out the back. Kevin was waiting for me in his van, parked 2 streets over. He had 2 camera guys with him, both seasoned professionals. Their cameras were prepped. Night vision. Check. Wireless microphones. Check. We followed her from a distance, watching as she pulled up to St. Augustine's Church. She walked inside. I clenched my fists. Kevin leaned forward, peering through the windshield. Now we wait. Minutes passed. Then, through one of the stained glass windows, I saw him. Father Daniel. Emily walked right up to him, and he greeted her with a kiss. A kiss. Not the kind you give a friend, not even the kind you give a lover in public. This was desperate. Hungry. And then, without hesitation, without a single glance toward the altar, Emily led him deeper into the church. Kevin's grip tightened on his camera. "You ready?" I nodded. The cameras rolled. We moved. The church doors burst open. Bright lights flooded the dimly lit space, cutting through the secrecy like a blade. Emily and Father Daniel froze. Emily's face twisted in sheer panic. She scrambled to pull down her skirt, her blouse half unbuttoned. Father Daniel, still wearing his clerical collar, stumbled backward, his face going ghostly pale. The two camera guys flanked the room, capturing everything. Kevin stepped forward. "Looks like the good father here has been administering a very different kind of confession." Emily turned to me, her eyes pleading. "James, please." "No," I cut her off, my voice eerily calm. "Save it. You don't get to pray your way out of this one." Her mouth opened and closed, as if she was grasping for an excuse, but there was nothing she could say. Father Daniel stepped in. "James, let's be reasonable about this. We're all adults here." I let out a dry laugh. "Oh, now you want to be reasonable? What happened to all that talk about sin and purity?" His jaw clenched. He wasn't used to being cornered. Emily spun to Kevin, her voice shrill. "You can't film this. It's private." Kevin smirked. "Oh, we can. And we are." She lunged for the camera, but the cameraman stepped back. "Touch me, and it's assault," he warned. Father Daniel, realizing just how deep he was in, tried a different tactic. "James," he said, smoothing down his shirt, "if you stop this now, we can figure something out. You don't want to ruin Emily's reputation." I tilted my head. "Her reputation?" A bitter laugh bubbled out of me. "She ruined mine. You both did. And now, everyone is going to see exactly who you are." Emily let out a choked sob. I turned on my heel and walked out, leaving them there, half-naked, humiliated, caught. Kevin followed, his camera crew right behind him. We stepped outside into the cool night air. I took a deep breath. It was done. The next morning, the world woke up to a scandal. The footage was everywhere. It aired on the local news before noon, and by the afternoon, it had spread like wildfire on social media. The headline: "Local priest caught in scandalous church affair with married woman." Emily and Father Daniel, in all their sinful glory, were now public property. People rewound the video, zoomed in, shared screenshots. The entire town feasted on their disgrace. By midday, the church officially denounced Daniel. He was suspended from his priesthood, his reputation shattered beyond repair. Parishioners, once devoted followers, were furious. Donations to the church dried up overnight. But Emily was destroyed. She couldn't even go to the grocery store without people staring. Whispers followed her through every aisle. The woman who once walked into church with her head held high now kept it low, her hands trembling as she paid for her groceries. Her friends, the same women she gossiped with at brunch, the ones she prayed with every Sunday, gone. The church group she once cherished. They shunned her. She tried to act like it didn't bother her, but I knew better. Then came the phone call. Not from Emily. From her mother. "James," her voice was heavy, like the words physically pained her. "I don't blame you for leaving her. I raised her better than this." I leaned against the counter, rubbing my temple. "I don't know what to say." She sighed. "Neither do I." There was a long silence between us. Then, before she hung up, she added one last thing. "I'm ashamed of her." And that? That told me everything I needed to know. Emily wasn't just caught. She was abandoned. But still, she wouldn't let go. That night, she called. I ignored it. Then she called again. And again. And again. Finally, I picked up. Her voice was raw, thick with tears. "James, please, please talk to me." Silence. "Say something," she begged. "Yell at me. Call me names. Just don't ignore me." I exhaled sharply. "What do you want, Emily?" She sniffled. "I messed up. I know I did. But James, you pushed me into this." I felt my jaw clench. "Excuse me?" "You were never there," she cried. "You buried yourself in work, in your own world. I was lonely. You didn't touch me the way you used to. You barely even looked at me. What was I supposed to do?" I let out a humorless laugh. "Not sleep with a priest, for starters." She let out a choked sob. "I just wanted to feel wanted again." "Oh, you felt wanted all right," I said coldly. "You just forgot about the man who vowed to love you." She was silent for a long moment. Then she whispered, "I didn't mean to hurt you, Emily." My voice was steady. "You meant every single word you texted him. You meant every lie you told me. You meant every time you chose to go to him instead of fixing what was broken between us." Her breath hitched. "Please, James. Just tell me what I can do." I sighed. "You already did it." And then, for the first time in months, I hung up on her. I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel pity. She made her bed. And now she could lie in it. The next morning, I walked into my lawyer's office and filed for divorce. No hesitation. No second thoughts. No last-minute doubts. By the afternoon, the papers were drafted, and Emily was served. She called me the second she got them. "James, please," she sobbed into the phone. "You don't have to do this." But I did. And I would. "You didn't have to do a lot of things, Emily," I said, my voice cold. "But you did them anyway." She cried harder. "It was a mistake." I laughed. A real, bitter laugh. "No, Emily. A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. A mistake is losing your keys. Sleeping with a priest for months. That's a choice." She was silent. For the first time, she had no excuses. No lies. No way to twist this in her favor. And I was done listening. I ended the call without another word. The divorce was swift. Brutal. Emily thought she'd get the house. She thought she'd get the car. She thought wrong. See, while she was busy betraying me, I had been smart. I had records, bank statements, text messages, evidence of her infidelity. And the judge? He had no sympathy for her. In the end, I walked away with everything. The house? Mine. The car? Mine. The savings? Untouched. Emily? She was left with nothing but regret. And the last time I saw her, she looked empty. She stood outside the courthouse, her once perfect hair a mess, her makeup smudged from tears. Her eyes, once so full of arrogance, were now hollow. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. There was nothing left to say. So I just walked past her. Did I feel bad? Not for a second. She betrayed me. Lied to me. Humiliated me. And now, she had to live with it.